production, if you remember, includes everything, right? Includes our ideology, includes our education, includes our religion, according to him, includes culture. All of that is to keep the status quo in place. For example, understanding of capitalism. Most people within capitalist societies do not notice that there is capitalism in a way that it's controlling their life. So everything within the society encourages the continuation of capitalism. Just like, for example, in a monarchy system or in the feudal system, there is always ways in which the people on top or the people of the upper class controls the people of the lower class. And the relationship between the upper class and the lower class, whether it's the capitalist and the proletariat, or whether it is the serfs and the lords in a feudal society, is always in need of each other. They are dependent of each other. The capitalist needs the proletariat and the proletariat needs the capitalist. Otherwise, the system will not work. So that's the conversation around class struggle, right? So we have to understand that it is a relationship that they have together. Okay. So it's not just about the material things. There is also the element of the superstructure, the ideology, the thinking of, right? The mental production of things that people don't notice about, for example, but we learn that this is how you're supposed to do it. This is how you're meant to live your life, right? Within a particular economic system. Yeah, I think that was about it that we learned, right? With Marx and class struggle and dialectic materialism. Okay, and then after that, we went on to meet Durkheim, right? So with Durkheim, we consider him as a structural functionalist, right? We looked at concepts of social facts. What is social facts? The significance of social facts in sociology and how that distinguishes sociology from psychology. And then with Durkheim, it's always about structures and functions of things, that society is interconnected with one another. And Durkheim was also very strong on his concepts of morality and how that's important, and also the concept of solidarity. So we have solidarity as a form of social control, social order. We have two types of solidarity. If you remember, what are the two types of solidarity?
Organic and mechanical.
Yes, so we have two types of solidarity that Durkheim proposes: mechanical and organic solidarity. So mechanical solidarity, people come together by their sameness. So they have commonalities in the ways that they see society, in the way that they do their work, the division of labor, in their understanding of morality. So they come together based on their commonality. So they know that we have to control our society based on our commonality. So the order is based off that. So they are mechanical in nature, same, right? And then we have the organic solidarity, which is people come together by their interdependence, because the division of labor has expanded and has diversified. So people are different, and it's not just about division of labor, it's also their sense of morality. And this was Durkheim's concern. Durkheim was concerned that if people are not attached to each other by their similar morality, will they have norms that they can hold together? If they do not have norms, then they will have problems, right? The concept of normlessness, which leads to anomia or enemy, right? And that would be a dysfunction in the society. So that solidarity is meant to hold the society together, okay? All right, and then we had a conversation also about collective consciousness, right? And we did some work on social media and the role of collective consciousness, whether or not people still held similar beliefs, similar morality and judgment, and whether that's true or not, right? So that is also another conversation to be had when we talk about solidarity. In Malaysian society, we may have societies where there are still mechanical solidarity in place, right? If we stay in areas where people have similar division of labor, people still share similar morality, and we can identify that by how also they respond to differences, right? If people are different, they will respond differently. But in the city, like KL, for example, everybody is different, right? So many people who are different. Everybody's doing different kinds of jobs, different socioeconomic level, different religious beliefs, different culture even. In fact, within the religious beliefs, there are also differences in people who come from different parts of the world, and different ways of looking at things. So in the city, we find that there is people are more attached to each other through organic solidarity rather than mechanical solidarity. Okay. And then with social media use and collective consciousness, we also looked at some ways in which we can observe collective consciousness in sameness of how people respond to certain morals and certain values, right? For example, how Malaysian people respond to the refugees, right? Or how we have a lot of social media movements, right? Social movements through social media. Like in the West, there's like Black Lives Matter. There is like the Me Too movement. In Malaysia, we have, during the pandemic, what do we have in Malaysia? Social media movements. Do you know social media movements? No? For example, we have Kita Jaga Kita, right? Where people take care of each other during banjir, during the flood times, during the pandemic, right? So that's an example of collective consciousness that despite people living far away, we were still governed by the moral standards of taking care of one another. In the context of like Black Lives Matter, it's about equality in race, and there's also like Me Too movement. So these are examples of collective consciousness displaying on social media, which is new, right? In the past, we don't have social media to display our collective consciousness. So sometimes we think in the present, people are no longer having collective thinking, but now we have like, that's like positive movements. But we also have like maybe not official ones, which are not necessarily positive in terms of how we respond to migrants, or how we respond to refugees, or how we respond to certain groups of people. How, for example, the Israel Koyak, that's a kind of collective conscience in practice. We can observe that. That's how our people are responding. Is that clear so far? No one's responding. Are you also there? Okay. All right, very good. Okay. And then we looked at religion after that, right? For Durkheim, we looked at his theory of religion. And then we also looked at, with theory of religion, the functions of religion. So that was interesting also to see that religion, to see the perspective of sociology on religion as performing social functions, and to realize that despite Durkheim being an agnostic, he still believed that religion plays an important role in society and has real social functions within the society. So I think that was also interesting. And then after Durkheim, we went to see Weber, right? With Weber, we looked at his concept of social action, and also his justification for sociology. So Weber's focus is on subjectivity rather than objectivity. So that was also interesting. So he moved away from Auguste Comte. I don't know if you remember this from your Theory 1 class, but Weber moved away from Comte's way of looking at things from a positivist perspective. So with Weber, after we did social actions, we looked at his ideal types, if you remember, right? And then we looked at concepts of bureaucracy. That's really important, okay? To understand the elements of bureaucracy, what did the process of rationalization brought about bureaucratization of things, right? As people become more rational, they expect certain things to change, right? Through the process of rationalization. So the principles of bureaucracy is something that you really want to look at, right? The principle of efficiency, calculability, predictability, and making things standardized, the reducing of human in processes, right? So we're talking about bureaucracy, we want to minimize human error. So we usually require, for example, like people to fill in forms, certain processes to be there. We use computers to churn or to do certain calculation, so that everything remains standardized. And then we saw the extension of Weber's idea of rationalization and bureaucracy applied to a contemporary theory. So which one is this? You remember? I asked you all to eat fast food for this. The extension of Weber's theory of bureaucracy and rationalization in the contemporary theory, written by your textbook writer also. So your textbook writer developed a new theory that was an extension of Weber's theory on rationalization and bureaucracy. What was the theory? Yes, McDonaldization by, what's our friend's name? The textbook writer that worked really hard to write the George Ritzer. Very good. So the concept of McDonaldization is also important to look at, right? And you can see McDonald as an example of how that can happen, right? Efficient, calculable, predictable, and standardized, and there is a lot of control, right? If you go to any McDonald, they all look the same, right? And you can expect similar things. There might be like some changes where we, in the contemporary period, we call that glocalization. This is this extra just for fun, because I am already on the topic, and then I think it's interesting to highlight to you. Glocalization is like, for example, if you go to Malaysia, McDonald's, you have Prosperity Burger, right? If you go to McDonald's somewhere else, there is something else. But generally, it will be the same. It will be the same, right? There will be like fries, there will be McFlurry, there will be Coke, there will be burgers, and you know how to order, and it all looks the same. McDonald's always red and yellow, and then the way that they do things is the same, the recipe is the same. So that concept, not just to be applied to McDonald's, but to apply to everything, right? So if you go to any shop like Starbucks or H&M or any kind of experience that uses that McDonaldized way of doing things, is standard, right? That is the bureaucracy part. So everything is bureaucratized to give us that four things: the efficiency, the calculability, the predictability and standardization, and the control. So that's really important. And then after we went with Weber, we went to see, we went with Weber and then Protestant Ethics and the Spirit of Capitalism, right? And then we went to see our friend Shah Waliullah and looked at the irtifakat, concept of irtifakat, and then we met George Herbert Mead and the individual, the concept of I and me, and the role of the individual. So the focus is more micro for George Herbert Mead. And then we went to meet our only female thinker for this semester. It was Kartini, right? That is also in the Nusantara region to look at issues relating to society, gender, and also education. And that you had an exercise last week where you had to write a letter so that you can also contextualize your society and find out what are the pertinent issues that relates to the society around you. And then lastly, today and last class we did on Pareto, right? For Pareto, we worked on Pareto's concept of logical and non-logical actions and sentiments and residues. And then we went into the theory of elites and the circulation of elites. Okay, basically that's what we did for everybody, right? So make sure to remember all of your theories, okay? Even past this class. So that's like your building block. There's a lot of other theories out there, but we didn't cover them this semester, or we didn't get to cover them in this course. But I hope that you continue to explore theories and theorists and their theories so that you can have a better understanding of sociology and anthropology. I have to say that our theories and theorists are more sided towards sociology, and that's not my fault because the course outline was already there, and I was just continuing the course outline, so delivering it to you. I can mention some theories that I think are interesting that you can all explore if you're interested. And if you're interested in theory, just come and see me. I would really love to have a chat with you, or if you want to like expand on things, that will be really good. Some theories that I think are great, but we don't work on. I'll mention some of them. For anthropology, like you have Malinowski, you have Margaret Mead, Clifford Geertz. I think you learn this in anthropological courses. Levi Strauss, Sally Slocum. That would be like anthropology. But like if it's sociology that we don't explore as much, Anthony Giddens is like contemporary sociology. We also have Irving Goffman. I really like Goffman's work. Howard Becker, you might also find him. Also, Howard Becker writes a lot of good work on social science writing. Like if you want to go into academia and you want to learn how to write like a social scientist, I would definitely recommend Becker's writing on how to write like a social scientist. And then we have Raywin Connell, and then on more like global South side of things, we would look like at Jose Rizal, Syed Hussein Alatas, and then like Ibn Khaldun. I think we don't discuss them as much, but like to go more in depth, there's also like Laila Abu Lughat. These are theories that I think would make really interesting discussions, but obviously there's more opportunities in the future for you all to explore these thinkers. So yeah, okay. You can always look at your textbook and like go through the names that we didn't go through in the class and explore them. Okay, any questions so far? This is the last bit.
Doctor,
Yes.
you owe me one answer that you told me to ask at the end of the semester.
Okay.
It's about the fetishizing the commodities. So do you think it's a bad thing or good thing on your perspective?
Can you I missed it. It was choppy a little bit. What do you say?
So before I asked in our group WhatsApp, like I asked if fetishizing commodities is a good thing or a bad thing, and I asked from your perspective, but then you said that you will answer that at the end of the semester.
Yeah, so what do you think now? At the end of this semester, after studying Marx, do you think fetishizing of commodities is a good thing or a bad thing? What about all of you? Do you all think it's a good thing or a bad thing? So whether something is good or not, it would depend on our moral standards, right? And our moral standards can be a collective thing or it can be an individual thing. So as an individual, I think that fetishizing of commodities does not meet my moral standards. But it is very difficult for us to get out of it because we live in this system, right? The superstructure taught us, and we have taken on the ideology. It's hard to say that we don't care about commodities, right? We go to school to get qualification, to get a good job, and that's all of the things that we do every day. And then we buy things, and then we measure people up according to what they're wearing, what car they're using, which house they live in, the prestige of what they have in the capital world. Right, that's how we view everybody. So to really get out of that is difficult and it's challenging, right? And that's what Marx is saying, that we cannot think about it and to choose to be part of that or not. We are already part of the system. Like Weber uses the concept of the iron cage. Like we are part of the iron cage, we don't know how to get out of it. We're part of bureaucracy, we don't know how to get out of it, right? But for fetishism of commodities, I personally think that it's problematic. Obviously, capitalism as a whole, I think, is problematic and does not follow by my understanding of what Islam is, right? Because of the exploitation elements. Okay, when we talk about capitalism exploiting others, then that doesn't abide by our Islamic tenets, as how I understand it as a sociologist, because in Islam, we already have social structures that are meant to ensure that the gap between different groups are not too large, right? We have systems like zakat, we have systems like wakaf, we have systems like sadaqah. This is meant to reduce the gap, that we care for each other genuinely, right? Not to use it to make more capital. So the sometimes like the idea of Islamic banking is like a mask, rather than we really use Islamic principles, right? We sort of pasted into them. And you can read a lot of IIUM lecturers work also on this. But the system of capitalism in general creates that fetish for commodities, right? Commodities is not just things like me wanting to buy more gold or like thinking whether or not I'm wearing a fancy tudung with a brand that everybody can see. It's also everything we do in life that we're chasing, right? Every day we're chasing like, oh, I need to buy a house so that I can retire. I need to get a new phone. I need to, that's part of our life. Like I need to take care of my son so he can study hard and then get a job. All of that is fetishizing of the commodity. So I personally think that's a very problematic part of our day-to-day life. But to get out of that, I think that's a real challenge that we have to do as a society. Like no one person can sort of change that. And we cannot, that's why Marx says it's not a choice. Like even if I disagree with it, I cannot just choose not to fully participate. I'm part of the system. Okay. I have to end this session. We have one last minute. I want to thank everybody for your kind participation in this semester. Thank you so much for joining my class throughout the semester. It's been a really wonderful time, despite the challenges that we face. Some of you had to go through floods and all of that, studying from across the world at different times with us. So thank you so much. Well done to all of us. Congratulations. I apologize for any weaknesses on my part, taking care of